All right, so let's just say we have 10 students. We want to take the grades in and then calculate the average grade of the class. Let's just say the number is from 1 to 20. All right, so 10 students. If we're gonna get the grades of every student, so we need 10 inputs. Probably that's the case, right? Okay, then we want to average them. So we're going to average the class's grade. How could we do that? Let's move into VS Code and start coding. I can say input, right, and do it 10 times. If you want to copy a line, hold Shift, Alt, and arrow keys down and up, and that makes it copy. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Obviously, this is very, very wrong from the software engineering perspective. If we wanted to do something over and over again, we used loops. So let's go. For I in range, I want the loop 10 times. It's gonna be from 0 to 9, so it's 10. Okay, what are we gonna do for 10 times? I want to get an input from the user. And let's print something on the screen. Let's say enter a student's grade. Okay, let's just run this and see what happens. F5. Yeah. I should do the settings so I don't have to do this again and again. So it's waiting for my number. Let's say 2, just some numbers. And as you can see, 10 numbers. Let's make it 5 so it's not so long. And we are assuming that the grade is between 1 and 20. All right. So that part is fine. We have one problem though. You are getting the input, but you're not saving it anywhere. All right, so I say grades equals input. If you do that, you're gonna be in big trouble. You know why? Because the first time loop is running, you take the grade, you save it in grades. The second time it runs, you get the grade, you save it in grades. The third time, so every time it's overriding the number before, right? Let's see that. I'm gonna print grades. F5, it says enter the grade 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as you can see, in the end, the number, the grade is 6 because every time you're overwriting the previous number. So what can we do then? Apparently, we need a list, an array, so we can store all the numbers. All right, so I'm gonna say grades equal just an empty array, nothing else. So here I have an empty list called grades. So what we can do is use a very specific function or method called append. What does that mean? Obviously it means adding or appending something to this list. So I can say dot append. Right. We're going to talk about methods and functions in very, very detail. So don't worry about that. You just watch. Okay. And all functions use parentheses. So I can say get this, whatever this number is going to be, and append it to this list. And do this for 5 times. And in the end, I'm going to print grades. Okay, F5. It says enter the grade. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And as you can see now, every number is adding to the list. It's not overriding the previous number. So we're good there. Let's fix some things here, because when we enter the number, it's stuck to the grade. Okay, So a colon and a space would be nice. So we got the grades. How can we take the average now? If I say print, it's gonna print all of the list. That's not good for me. I need each and every member, as you can see, right? All right, so I'm gonna have another loop for I. This time I can use a different syntax because for now we do know that our loop is going to go 5 times and we're gonna have 5 students. But maybe you don't. Maybe you're reading this list from a database and it's a number unknown. Then what can we do? Well, it's easy. I can say for I in and give it the list's name. Great. Simple as that. Now what's going to happen? Every time the for loop is running, it takes a look at this grades list and takes the length of the array. 5 members, 10 members, 1,000 members. So it knows now I'm gonna run for 1,000 times. And each time, one of the members will be stored in I. So let's go to the whiteboard. When you say for I, or whatever, this is just a name, I in your list, let's call it LST. What's gonna happen is Python will first check this LST and sees how many members this has. Let's say 5. So it knows the for should run 5 times. The first time, let's say this is the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. The first time it takes 1 and puts it in I. So if you say print I, so the first time 1 will be printed. It goes back up. The second time it takes this one and puts it in I. You print it. Third time you take the 3 and you print it. And on and on and on. So I can say for I, and if you want to be anal about it, you can say a student. That's much more understandable. For a student in grades, or you can say grade, right? Try to use definitive and descriptive names so you know what you're doing. We have a grades list, so each member of this list will be a grade. So for each grade in this list, do this. Okay, what shall I do? For now, I want to print them. So print grade. Let's just see what happens. F5, it says enter the grade 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It seems to work perfectly. I just want to do one thing. How can I add these together? Because if you want to take the average, you got to add them. But how? Let's create a variable. And let's call it sum. And we're going to put 0 in it. Or nothing at all. Whatever. It can be an empty string. If I say sum equals sum itself plus grade, what's going to happen then? So the first time, the first number you entered will be in grade, right? So you take the variable sum, which is 0, and you say 0 plus 3. And 3 will be stored in sum. It goes back up again. It takes the second member, 4, and puts 4 in grade. Now it says sum, which is now 3, equals 3 plus 4. It's 7, puts 7 in sum, and turns back up, right? Let's print sum after. Here I'm gonna print sum. Why am I not doing this in the for loop? Because I don't want it to happen again and again. I want every number to be added, then I want it printed. If you put it in the loop here, so if I do this, then it's gonna print every time. I don't want that. I want the final answer. Okay, F5. I'm guessing we're gonna have a problem, but let's just see. It's gonna be a weird answer. 7, 8, 9, 6, 5. Oh, jeez. Let's go here. 8, 7, 9, 6, 5. And it says, whoops, we're gonna have a problem. Int str. I cannot add them together. And it's right. Because whatever you take from input, it's a string. Whatever, even if it's a number, because it's a character 3. It's not the number 3. Remember, this 0 is very different than this 0. This is the character literal 0. This is the mathematical representation of 0. It's a number. So what I can do is, there is a very interesting discussion called typecasting, which we'll talk about more. But for now, if I say int like that and put everything in the parentheses, what that means is take whatever input gives you, which is a character 7, character 4, whatever. Try to cast it into integer, then append it to the grade. You see where I'm going with this? And these are, don't worry about them. These are functions. We'll talk about them a lot. So I think our problem is solved now. Let's hit F5 now. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And as you can see, you get 25. Let's run it one more time. I'm going to say 2. I'm going to say 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And you get 10. 5, 2, and 10. Right? So we have the sum here. Now, if I only divide this sum by the number of the members of this grades list, I have the average. So I can have another variable here called average and put another 0 here. Then I can say, hey, AVG or average is sum divided by, for now we know that our list have 5 members, but remember we talked about another function called len. That len function gave you the length of a list, right? So even if I didn't know the list is has 5 members, I could say len of grades, right? And we have a problem here. You cannot use it. You shouldn't do this in the loop. Why? Because sum is not final yet. You can have the sum variable only and only when your for loop is done. So I'm gonna put this average outside of the loop. Now, when the sum is finished, I can get the sum and divide it by the length of the grades. If this makes you a little confused, you can say 5 for now. But trust me, it's much easier if you just try it a couple of times. Anyway, and finally, I can print the average is, and whatever. All right, F5. It says entered numbers. I'm gonna say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the average is, well, Jesus, am I not a genius? Well, you gotta append this average as well. So this string plus the average, whatever is in this average variable. F5. Let's just say 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And we got a problem. What's the problem? What's the problem? Let's see here. It says can only concatenate a string, not float to a string. The problem is exactly in reverse. What does that mean? It means here we took input, which always gives us a string, and we cannot use them as numbers. So we cast them into integers, right? using int function. Now, the exact opposite is happening. You have a number in average, but you don't want a number. You want a string, so you can concatenate this here. What can I do now? Well, you have int, so probably you have str as well. Probably meaning, hey, Mr. str, get this and cast it into a string. If 5, let's go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and now it says the average is 2, which is perfectly fine and correct. So as you can see, with this little knowledge, just what's a variable, what's a list, what's a for loop, these are really simple concepts. We can do a lot. And remember, you see these fancy programmers doing a lot of long commands and instructions and libraries and classes and methods. All of them, and I do mean all of them, are built from these variables and these lists and these for loops and ifs and things like that. So basically what I'm trying to say is, this is programming. Don't think because these are simple instructions, simple commands, you cannot do anything with them. That's not correct. You can do a lot with them. You just need a little imagination and a good understanding of the basics, which I promise you, continue this course, I'm going to talk about each and every one of them. For example, why are we defining the variables here? Because if you define this sum variable, let's just say inside the loop, you have a problem. Why? Because the first time the loop runs, you have a variable sum, it's 0, it becomes 2 or 3 or whatever, it goes back up, the second time's running, again, you redefine the variable sum, you make it 0 again, and you overwrite the number again. That's not gonna work. So this has to be outside of the loop. It's a good programming habit to define whatever variables you want in the beginning of your program, something like this. So what is this 0? It's called initialization. It's usually recommended to initialize every variable you have. What I'm trying to do now is just give you a taste of what you can do. Anyway, hope this was useful. If it was, hit the like button. If it wasn't, thank you for your time.